So, welcome everybody to, I can't believe we're already on 11. I have been waiting for this one, but
What was 10?
Pardon? You didn't do 10?
You were here last week.
Time to go back to basics and work your steps.
No.
Whoa, that was
I
God
felt like I
speaking.
missed
How to hear God. How to hear God. Dave, I've often pictured him with a big beard, so. So, as I was preparing for this one, I had to remind myself frequently that this can't be me telling you how to do this, because I had that kind of excitement, because this has been my big thing over the last year, is learning how to hear God, the two-way prayer. And I started to really research exactly what that was, because I'm like, oh, prayer. I know how to do prayer. And then I found out how much I probably didn't know how to do prayer. We're going to talk about how to talk to God, but more importantly, do we stop to listen? It all begins with recognizing who exactly God is. If you're with us at this point, you have probably made that decision. Your higher power is God, Jesus being the Son of God. But part of this is, and the Bible itself tells us, God is spirit. He's not a walking, talking human body that you can see. It's not that he's going to walk through here and, oh, yep, that's God. He's right there, because God is in all things, and is everywhere. There is nothing anywhere in this universe that is not God, and he is not present. How does a human mind even begin to comprehend what that is? That becomes the problem. We try to make God something that's understandable, and that's human nature. We want to believe in something that we understand. God is a spirit. How do you understand? The Bible says in John 4, and these are the words of Jesus, God is sheer being itself, spirit. Those who worship him, and that's us, must do it out of their very being, their spirits, their true selves. Or you may have heard it this way: God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and in truth. And how often do we stop to think about that? What does that mean, to worship in spirit? And that's what I've been sitting with for almost a year. I want to learn how to connect spiritually with my God. And the dismantling of my religion to my deeply spiritual faith began there, with the realization that Jesus himself is telling me where my problem was. God is a spirit being everywhere, inside of me and everywhere else. He is everywhere and everything, and to worship with him, I must worship in spirit. Can't wait to talk about this today. The only way you can connect with God, however, in this spirit way, is you have to drop all the masks and pretenses. Because as Marvel Ann was sharing with us, you're not known or seen if you come in with a mask. Now, God already knows and sees, because he is everywhere and knows all things. But if you come in with a mask, God's not going to meet you there, because you haven't worshiped in truth. And that impacted me a great deal, because how often have I sat through the Lord's Prayer and truly took in what it means and what I'm saying? And I hope that people do that every time, because some of us, I was guilty of this for a long time. That prayer was so drilled in my head from childhood on. Memorize, memorize, memorize. First thing, you know. So we said it all the time, and you just say it on repeat, say the word, say amen, and move on. I've said it a million times and never gave a thought to what I was saying. And then I'd go on with life wanting more of this and more of that, and better food and a better house. And didn't I just say the Lord's Prayer? My daily bread, just meet my basic needs. Did I stop really to think that I'm talking to my Father Creator, Creator of the universe? We so often, I already know I'm going to be going so up. The slides will kind of be a guidance. I don't know how much I think we're going to go way off the rails, but in a good way. I've been sitting all morning and it's like, God, please help me explain to people who you are and how to approach you and how to be close to you. We talk so often about going to God in prayer. And that's a beautiful thing, and that is something that we should do frequently and often, go to God in prayer. But so often our prayers have become a checklist of things. These are all my problems. This is like, it's the honey-do list or the fix-it list. This is all the stuff we say amen, and then we go on our way. And we forgot the most important things. We just went to the Creator, presented our wish list of things that you can fix for me and see ya, and turned and walked away, and never once did we sit in that space and listen. And I think that probably happens quite a bit. We don't take the time to listen because we're so busy telling them what we want. God, fix this, fix that relationship. This person is being a jerk. This went bad, and this is hard, and I'm lonely, or I don't have enough money, or my job is awful. I need a better place to live. So fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it. Just make it better. Just make it back, like he's the ultimate handyman. Johnny on the spot. I can fix everything. Who do we think we are? Who did I think that I was? The presumption that, well, you must not love me because life is going hard. Where are you, God? I'm doing all this stuff. And so now we're angry because, that wish list is still there and I'm still trying to struggle through. And God's like, if you turn around, you're going to see an answer. But maybe if you'd sit in some silence, you'd hear that. A lot of times in the modern world, we can talk about meditation and it becomes when you meditate, just empty, 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 empty. So you're just this empty receptacle. The problem being, when you are a person who belongs to God, you should never be empty, because who resides in and dwells within you? I practice meditation, but I never do an empty myself, ever. It is a constant asking to be filled with, it's usually Yahweh or Abba. Those are who I'm going to. Yahweh, when it's like, I am humbled before you. I am recognizing who you are. Abba, when I just really need a dad. That's what Abba means. It means daddy. Think of a 2-year-old just running arms out. Daddy! That's Abba. And he's waiting to scoop you up. But when I meditate, I'm not choosing to empty. I'm not umming and doing the things. I am sitting in this mind space asking for nothing but God to be present in me. God, I want to hear you, not so I can sit and tell you the things to fix, but I want to hear you. And as you sit in that space and you just let go of the things that would distract you from God and just lean closer to Him, God, I need to hear you. And then how do you know that you're hearing God? I think part of me just sat there, I'm like going to meditate, and maybe other people who are new to meditation that have tried it is like, now what? Now what do I do? Okay, I'm sitting still, now what? And my mind's all like, am I going to hear it? Am I going to see something? Like, what? Heidi, just be quiet. Just be quiet. It's a still small voice. God, so often in the Bible, it talks about that still small voice. And we're so often watching for the big, loud, flashy, bright things, right? big neon sign. See, that's from God. It says right there, God says this. Right there. He doesn't work that way. And that becomes a problem because as human beings, we like those really clear black and white signs, you know, that I can read it. God exactly said this to me. We need to become close to God so we understand when we hear with our minds the still small voice. We recognize this is God's direction. And that can be a little strange at first if you've never practiced prayer that way. Well, is this my thoughts? Am I coming up with this? Because you can overthink it to death. I did. Well, this is my thought. I'm thinking about this. God, what do you have to say? And he's like, who gave you the thought? Like, you're asking me and I'm answering you. And I think so often we can overlook the fact that that is God speaking. It may not, the earth isn't going to start shaking. It's not going to have a big storm outside the window. Still small voice. It's a knowledge and an understanding. It's assuredness of an answer to a question that you've been mulling over. I can't tell you how many times I've been sitting in that space of quiet and all of a sudden, bam, this thing that's been sitting on my mind and I can't quite figure out like what's the right way to go. And all of a sudden it's just as plain as day. But I've been deliberately quiet and God's like, finally, you cleared the noise so you can hear me. I've had the answer. But you're noisy because you're trying to do it yourself, figuring it out on your own, not wanting to do it that way because, well, my way might be a little quicker, might be a better payoff for me, whatever it might be. We often hear God and often choose not to go with what he's been saying to us.
Until the 10th time he shows you.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
why I move the shed so the chickens don't flood.
Oh, yeah.
That's why I hired you.
Exactly. I am much like you. God knows this one right here. She sometimes takes some time to finally hear it. Maybe. Mildly, a little bit. Just a little bit. Because in my mind, I see hard-headed, stubborn people as a certain way because they would never look like me, you know.
Big book says most alcoholics have to be pretty badly mangled before they actually commence to solve their problem.
Yes, and that was some truth for me.
Still is.
Yeah. But doesn't God do his best work through those? It's how Dave can be the right person for so many people because he's had those moments. He gets it. It's how I'm not rattled by somebody going through some hard stuff. Your story doesn't affect how I feel about you because, man, I've gone through some stuff. I've been there. I've been there. You know, I've said so many times, it's why I'm just so open with how flawed I am. Because don't ever think if God puts a calling in your life to do something like this, that all of a sudden I somehow figured it all out. I sure didn't. I choose to see God knew I needed those kind of guardrails on my life. Because I fought him on this one. There was a lot of two-way over this calling. I didn't want to do it. So I didn't. I argued that. I'm a female. And I use female judges all through the Bible. You know that. You've read all about them. Took that one right away from me. I am scared to death to speak publicly in front of people. I'm not, and I'm going to just use your mouth to say my words and what I want to say. Shoot, you took that one right away because I can't be about me and what I want to say. Okay. I had a million things. How about this one? I'm really kind of getting old. I'm kind of getting to retirement age, you know. I had a couple and, 100 years old, and I decided they were going to have a baby. Think I can't use you? Duh, took that one away from me too. He's got an answer to everything. And I really struggled with it. And I say that because God will often use things that make no sense to you in your life. Because you're sitting there saying, I can't. Have you seen me? And God's like, that's why I'm using you. What better person to use than the one who says there's no way I could do this? So how is it that you do this? Because of God. Because of God. God chooses the broken ones because they make him so much more real to other broken people. What good would it do if I sat up there saying, I have lived the most perfect life? Like, let me tell you, I think maybe in 1978, I might have been naughty and took an extra piece of candy and didn't tell anybody. But outside of that, I have been so perfect. I have done it all right. I pray well. I do all this stuff right. I'm just real sorry that hasn't been true for all of you.
I would like your Bible.
But, and tabbies and different color coding and all the, yes. No. No. I'm so profoundly grateful that it's through the most flawed people that he often speaks the loudest. He sure has to me. We've talked about this word before. Haga, it's how it's described and how it is that we're supposed to think about and desire to lean into God. And I found this example the other day, and I explained it to Robert, and he's like, completely understood it. So think of it this way. How many of you have heard a song and you're like, you loved it from the get-go? Now you've got that song memorized. You know it word for word. You might even have the whole routine down. Like, when the drums are going to hit, and then all of a sudden this awesome guitar is going to come in, and then there's this big, the whole thing, right? So you sit there and think about it and sing it. That's Haga. Does that make sense? That thing that gets in your mind and you can't stop thinking about it. We call it earworm sometimes, that song over and over and over. That's what we're called to. That's what we should be thinking about God like. That desire to know him more and more and more. Like, I want more. It's a hunger that you never feel like you get enough of. Like Jimmy can't even contain it back there. Like, give me more. Like, you want more. When you meet God in spirit and all of a sudden it's gone from corporate church to relational with God, you want more. Endlessly. I'm not sitting in devout, pious prayer all day from sunrise to sundown. If I tried to tell you I was, my husband would be here to say, now we really need to be honest, that's not how it is at all. My prayers to God look like a million different ways. It can be in a song. It can be while I'm walking through the woods. I can be sipping my coffee and watching the hummingbirds at my feeder in the morning. It can be a million different things. I find myself more and more and more just talking to God as if he's right here because I've suddenly realized he is. But more importantly, I've really learned to trust myself in when it comes to hearing him speak. That didn't start coming easy, though, until I really started deliberately taking the time to listen, because even Jesus paused. This was my next conviction. We talk so often about how busy we are. And Luke 5:16 says, as often as he could, Jesus would withdraw to out-of-the-way places for prayer. Why? Jesus was showing us that even he needed to pull away. So do we really think we don't? He was fully divine and fully human. I sometimes get busy, and my busy looks a little different than some other jobs do. Robert gets very busy, and his busy looks a little different. Everybody can be so busy. There's a million things to do. Life is hard. It's a lot of work. There's a lot to do, and there's a lot of busyness. And then there's busy fun. We got to go play, and then we got to go do this, and we got to get to this appointment, and we got that program, and we've got this. Jesus had one job, and that was to save the universe. I would imagine that's some busyness. I would imagine there's some work to do. I would imagine every day when his feet hit the floor, it was busyness. And everywhere he goes, it's not like he's just out wandering by himself, like, I wonder if anybody will be here to talk to today. The Bible over and over and over tells us how people came in droves, hundreds and thousands, pressing around, just chaos all the time. Everybody wants a piece of Jesus. It was a survival strategy of sorts. It's where his connection to Father happened. Do you think Jesus didn't need that one-on-one time with God? Connection with that aspect of his very being? And he took time out of the busy work of saving us, this universe, to do it. I am sure there were times those with him, those disciples, those misfits, frequently, what is he doing? Going off there again, sitting by himself out there, just doing it. Like, there's things to do. We got to get going. But I think they eventually started recognizing, like, if Jesus is doing this, he's showing us this is important. This isn't an optional thing. But what he was also doing is being faithful to what we were commanded to do, because he was also fully human, experiencing all that we were. And because he realized that dreaded S word again, Sabbath, is freedom. It's where we commune with God. It's where we long to lean in closer and know him more. It's where we want quietness so we can hear him speak and guide us. And it's the one thing humanly that I think our enemy works the hardest on, because I'm too busy to do that right now. I'll get to it. I got a few minutes before I fall asleep out of sheer exhaustion, and I'll cram God in there. Why don't we give him the prime pieces? If 15 minutes is too much to give to God out of your day of 24 hours, does God have to adapt to you, or do you need to adapt your life to be a God follower? Do we want to see what God says as a command as an option in our life? He's not saying this because laziness is a virtue. Just be lazy, just sit around and do nothing. That's not what this is. What this is saying, God has commanded me to do this, and I trust him to provide for me in spite of my taking some downtime. Because so often in the frantic rat race of life, we don't see, but if I take time away from that, or if I don't do this side job, or if I don't fill in the blank with whatever it is you think you have to do instead, and then there goes your Sabbath. And again, it doesn't have to be on a Sunday morning in a setting like this. You can Sabbath keep all the time. I give myself mini Sabbaths every day now because I need to stay connected. I long for that connection, but it's easy. It's easy to do. All God is trying to do is help you to understand that he's created us and given us a life where he's saying, I want you to take downtime and just rest in me. And who doesn't want some rest or a break or a vacation or some peace? Because isn't that what we're often longing for in the rat race and busyness of life? I sure was. And instead, in the middle of all this chaotic busyness, those few minutes I gave to God was my wish list of things. Fix it. Whew, if you could just put a comma in my bank account, I wouldn't have to work so hard. You know, fix this and then I won't have to do this. And then we're off and running again. Continuous busyness is truly a slave mindset. And yet we live in a culture that sees workaholics as they were such a hard worker. That's all they talk about at the funeral. What a hard worker and a great provider. I would rather hear, man, he was the best husband I could have ever had. He was my best friend and he always made time for me. He was such an involved dad. Like he loved his kids and he always had time for the grandkids and his family. Like, man, he sure loved Jesus and there was nothing better than seeing him out there on that chair just being present with God. I've been to so many funerals that it was, what a hard worker. Always so busy. They did so many things. And humanly speaking, it's just easy to hold that up. The deeper I got into this and explored this, the more I realized how busyness is just a tool in the hands of the one who wants to keep us from God. Because the further you are away, the less you spend time with him, the easier it is to just keep walking further away. You don't feel so convicted. You don't feel so uncomfortable. You're not spending a lot of time around other people who would maybe suggest that, hey, you know, you could use some time with Jesus. If you are too busy to take time from God in your day, you need to fix that now. Trust God that he can provide for you if you give him 15 minutes of heartfelt, honest time. And I promise if you make that a habit, you're going to find yourself longing for more. I promise you that God is not going to take away your livelihood because I've taken a bit of a break. The earth isn't going to stop spinning because people stop to talk and listen to God. You might find yourself feeling more peaceful. You might find that you have less anxiety. You may find that your depression gets better. You may find that you have answers to questions you just can't figure out and you just keep trying to figure it out. Sit still and be quiet and listen. When life is really out of control and you can't figure something out, that quietness can be the solution to everything. God will meet you there. I'm going to skip that one. The more that I shed the old beliefs that were instilled in me, the more I realized that church has kind of steered things back to the rules and the laws and the legalism. Again, the very thing that Jesus came to free us from. And those were hard things for me to sit with. I've had some things deeply ingrained into me from childhood on. And it's a terrifying thing as somebody who says, God, I really love you, but I'm going to shed everything that people told me to believe because I want to learn from you who you really are. It was one of the most frightening adventures I've ever set out on because I felt I was doing something wrong. I was so afraid to question long-held beliefs about God. But man, the freedom that came when I allowed myself the freedom to ask God questions. Did God ever say, do not ever question anything? No. He said the opposite, be childlike. What, throw yourself on the floor and throw a tantrum? No, not talking about that. He'll just walk right on over you and keep on going. No, what he means is be childlike and inquisitive. Explore and ask questions. Everybody jokes about kids and the why. Do you think God doesn't take delight in your desire to know why? What does he want? Blind faith because somebody that stood up here or sat up here told you? Or because you asked him why and you listened? Our relationships with God are meant to be personal. They're not meant to be based on the rules of this particular denomination. This set of beliefs, and if you err from that in any way, shape, or form, well, your salvation's in question. No, it's not. Jesus spoke so plainly about humanity will never fully understand God this side of heaven. If you could understand God fully, what kind of God is he? So allow yourself to understand he's beyond your comprehension. Allow yourself to ask questions like, when you said you love everybody, like, that everybody? Yeah. When I said my son died for the whole world, I meant that. So when you call me to love you and love other people, that Jesus, I heard you say, love God and love people. That's the way to you? Because it seems too simple. You don't need a minister to communicate with God. You don't need somebody with a degree or all the letters behind their name to tell you how to approach and talk to God. You don't need priests, you don't need pastors, you don't need ministers, you don't need people with a master's degree, bachelor's degree, or any of those other things. There is nothing that interferes with your ability to go directly to God himself. Oh, but I didn't go to a church building every Sunday and sit there faithfully every week, week after week after week, like I should have done that. Why? Why? Because that will get you in heaven? If that's what you use this for, that's not how it works. It isn't how it works, and I was raised believing that to be the case. That if you didn't physically sit in these spaces on Sunday morning, you're not going to church. And aren't we going to be surprised? The early church met together not because they needed somebody now to be their access to God. They did it out of an excitement and a joy for what they've been given in Jesus. Because they shared their testimonies and their stories of what God has done in their life, and it spread like wildfire. I like wildflowers too. Those would be beautiful to spread. But it grew and it spread because of the way they were living with each other. Because they were communing with God, in hearing God, in emulating Jesus. They weren't going to the temple anymore to see the priest. Do you know how hard that must have been for people thinking it has to be all rules and legalism to all of a sudden have this freedom? Like I have that kind of, like, I'm just going to talk to God like right now. Like, yeah, hi God. Yeah, right now. I can't even comprehend the joy and the overwhelming awe this early church had in the realization that Jesus himself tore the separation down between them and God. And they joyfully came like, can you believe it? Can you believe this? I so often watch people chaotically navigating life, searching and searching and searching and working so hard to find some peace. I certainly have. Tried everything. The drinking route certainly didn't work. If you think that's a good route, come talk to me. I'll explain that doesn't work at all. Unless it's water, drink your water.
Amen.
Yep. Yep. But I was so busy trying to do it right when it came to God because I was so afraid of doing it wrong. So, follow the rules, find out what this church believes in, try to do all that, and then that prayer thing, talking to God. And I don't know why that's not. I don't know why we don't make a bigger deal about that. This ability to commune and hear from God himself. Like, we just treat it like it's no big deal. Just going to pray. Sometimes I do approach that way. I'm busy and I'm human and I'm tired and I'm like, oh God, could you just fix this? I'm getting kind of frustrated, and I can slip back into that. But God is just waiting for you to come and talk with him. Like I can talk with my husband, like I can talk with Billy, like I can talk with Dave. I just sit and I can talk. Sometimes out loud like this. I've done that. I'm sure if anybody's listening, they thought I grew another head, but I really am starting to really care a lot less about that. I don't care who catches me talking to God. I really don't, because I know who I'm talking to. But something has shifted since I've really worked to lean into this over this past year, and the difference that it has made in my faith life is nothing less than profound. I am certain that my husband could tell you that I am a markedly different person than the person that he met. That my faith is profoundly real to me. That I am one of those Jesus freak girls, like, I just love Jesus. Like, let me tell you about him. But it's in those moments of stillness that I gave myself to fight my way through this human chaos in my head that so often makes it too noisy to hear him. I kept going back. I kept going back because this was a new practice to me. I never prayed like this before. Prayer, you're supposed to be saying all the words, right? Like they even have formulas for how to pray. I know, Marvelane, you know what I'm talking about. The formula for prayer. You start by this, and then you do the asking thing, and then you know what I'm talking about.
It's like how they tell you to write an essay.
Yes. I tried to learn that because I'm like, that's how I'm supposed to pray, because I'm just like, blah, 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 blah. I'm like talking, and I'm like, nope, I got to get it all ordered and laid it. And I went right straight automatically to the good King's language, thee and thou. I can thee and thou with the best of them yet. Like I could turn on King James like right now. But what I found is there is a barrier between me and God. Have you ever felt like I'm praying and praying and praying and it's never going anywhere? Like you feel like it hits a ceiling? God, do you hear me? Are you hearing me? And God's like, are you listening for me? Oh, that's what he's calling us to. Because he's talking all the time. He's always there, I promise. I promise. He is always ready to talk to you. Sometimes we have to shut our mouths and request long enough to hear him. You're not going to hear him living in chaos. You're not going to hear him if you never stop and your mind is on something else. Because when you're stopping to take time with God, you can't be thinking about the project that's undone. The barn that I have to move so my chickens don't drown. Although Jesus would have said, you get those chickens moved, so. But he has promised to meet you there in the quiet. The Bible talked about the time they were waiting to hear God's voice, and there was these big loud things. And no, God wasn't there. And then another loud came, but God wasn't in that. And then there was just a gentle breeze, and God was in that. A still, small voice. You don't hear that in the middle of loud. And that means your own talking and your own thoughts. I don't know. I can't make anybody want to know how to commune with God this way. I can only ask you to consider it or think about it, and maybe you too will long for it, for the peace that it brings, for the clarity and the answers that it gives you. And I say that because it does this for me. My mind is cluttered. It's a cluttered thing. I've got turmoil and chaos and wars in my head all the time, between right and left. If you only knew. Sometimes I show you. Sometimes I talk about it openly because I'm really at war. It is so loud and noisy between these two ears. All the time. It wasn't easy for me to sit myself down and make myself hear God. I've got dishes, I've got laundry, I've got work, I need to write this, I need to research this. I remember I told somebody I'd do this and I got to do this, and God's like, be quiet and listen to me. It's going to be okay, I'll handle that. It took me a long time to finally say, okay, I'm going to trust you. My ego was in the way because I never took the time to listen. He's promised over and over and over to give you the answers. He will keep his promises, that he's working a plan, that he will provide. And we live our life in a rat race of chaos and busyness like we don't know that. But do you believe it? Do you believe God sees you and loves you, will provide for you, that has a plan on your life? There is such a specific plan and calling on your life, and how will you ever know if you haven't listened for it? I obviously didn't listen. Like sitting here and doing this was never Heidi's plan, ever. It was never my plan to ever step foot into a building that called itself church. If you know my story, you know why. I always loved God though. And I felt like my time away from the building was time away from God. And now I realize that's the closest to God I ever was. He was with me every step of the journey, teaching me and guiding me, and better yet, protecting me and keeping me safe. I came through 40 years relatively unscathed. I am near speechless over that. I know what he's protected me from. I know what he's brought me through. I know what he's taught me. It's because God knows how crazy and busy life is, how difficult it is to navigate this earth as a human being. Do you really think he asked you to stop being busy so he could punish you with being quiet in some peace? Why is it that we resist stillness? Because how many times, I just can't sit still. I'm just not somebody, I have to be busy. I always have to be doing something. I can't sit still. I'm just busy all the time. Got to be busy all the time. God's not going to take you and plop you on the chair and say, you're in timeout and sit there with me. God doesn't operate that way. I know. Exactly.
Where's Katie?
We need people who belong to God and who profess openly to love Jesus shouldn't be resistant to spending time with him eagerly. Shouldn't be so quick to say, I can't right now, I'll get to it. Because what happens to those things on the I'll get to it list? They're usually on there the next day, right? Still got to get to it. How many people have gone a day or 2 days or 3 days? Oh yeah, I should probably talk to God. Afterthought. I know. I'll raise my hand. I have. Heidi, when did God become a down the list option? Shouldn't every list every day start with talk to Abba, talk to Yahweh, talk to God, however you address him? Shouldn't that always be at least in your top 3 list? Can it make the top 3? He doesn't ask much of us considering what he's given. You know, what is an eternity with him worth to you? Giving up your human desires? We often say, yeah, I'm not giving that up. I sat with some of these things just recognizing just how often our human egos get in the way. God is God and demands to be recognized as God, not an afterthought. You know, I've talked about how God doesn't see us as a duplex that he resides in. And every once in a while, we go visit the neighbor on that side. Hi, God, now how are you? I've been at the neighbor's house for a while, the neighbor being you and the way you want to do it. He won't live in that. He doesn't share. He's a jealous God. He talks about that. It's why he talks about our relationship with him in a marriage picture. A husband and a wife. You don't invite all kinds of other things into that space and relationship, or you shouldn't.
It's not a good recipe.
It is not. God is jealous. We don't do that here. Just kidding. We need to remember who we're talking to. We would be over the moon if we got to meet our favorite race car driver, singer, athlete, actor, whatever. Pick out somebody you just really, like I am giddy to meet this band we're going to go see Friday. I'm so excited. Am I as excited to talk to God? Would I act more excited talking to that human individual than how I'm feeling that I'm speaking to God? That's hard things because, but I can see them and that. But it's a reminder to us of who it is that we're actually speaking to. But prayer can't just be speaking to God. That's not what prayer is. Us in recovery, especially those who have gone through the steps, and that's why we're talking about this, because this is step 11. Wow, we're almost done. But this is where you're going to get your answers. This is where God is going to give you the help you've been needing and asking for. This is where God is going to go to war with you against the addiction or whatever it is that you're bringing to Him. This is where God builds you up, feeds you, and restores you. This is where God tells you who you are and what your worth is, and how much He loves you and what you mean to Him. This is where God shows you what your calling is and how He is going to work through you. This is where God will convict you where you need to change and how to do it. Because one of my favorite things to realize, I have so often spoken about how deeply I was convicted by the Spirit. Do you know that the Spirit isn't there to sit there and make you feel bad about yourself? That Spirit is to be seen like a fresh wind blowing through. He's there to say, hey, this thing right here, let's get rid of it. It's a completely different thing. Once again, I approached it as you're so bad, Heidi. Look at this, like the Spirit's rubbing my nose in it. He's not, He's there to clean it out. Let's blow that right on out. Let's fill it with God. It's what He's promised us and given to us. I will forever be that girl that is going to challenge you to be Sabbath keepers, however that looks in your life. It's where you find God in a connection to God. It's where you go to speak with Him and be close to Him, wherever that is and whatever that looks like. Sometimes my closest moments with God are when I am walking through the woods behind my house. There's something about the peacefulness of it, the sound of the birds, the crack of the sticks as the other animals are someplace out there walking around. My dogs are exploring and doing their things, and I will often stop and just sit down. Sometimes I'll even lay down, just looking up through the trees, taking in, like, God, you gave this to me to enjoy. That's how much you love me. I'm stopping to say thank you for what you've given me. This is peace to my soul. There is nothing better in the middle of the awfulness of human life, in the heaviness, in the pain, in the hurt, in the loss, to have precious moments of peace with your Father God. Do you think He won't meet you there? Do you think He won't have advice? Who here as a parent, if your kid is coming to you, is like, I really need some advice. Are you going to turn your back on them and walk away? Really think you're going to say, figure it out on your own, I ain't helping you? It's not what He promised. He's given us the Spirit so we will know. He's promised He'll always answer your prayers. We sometimes have to remember, though, it may not be the way we want it answered. I have a million of those. I thought God didn't answer because it didn't get answered the way I wanted it answered. My estrangement with some of my kids, God has answered. This is His answer up until now. He said, I didn't ask you to like this. I've asked you to trust me with this. And that's a very different thing. He knows how I feel about it. He knows what I want, because, I've told Him plenty what I want. He's like, trust me with this too. You asked me to keep them safe, and they're all safe. I have answered your prayer. Oh. Jesus practiced meditating, a connection with God. He both asked, but He waited to receive the answer. He listened. He needed to know what God said. And his prayers were, God, this is what I want. Please, can you make another way so I don't have to do the cross? Can we please do this another way? Please, God, is there another way? We talked about this last week. The drops of blood, the heaviness, the anguish, can you imagine? But what was his follow-up? But God, if that's not your plan, I'm surrendering to what you want. He knew what he was surrendering to. Willingly. That's what he's asking us to do. He's not asking us to like it. I'm sure Jesus, humanly, there was no liking what laid ahead. And again, we always talk about the cross like that was the worst. He knew he was going to suffer hell. I would dare say I'd rather take the cross than hell. He knew. And still surrendered, but not what I want. I'm going to listen for what you want, and that is what we're called to. To sit that way in front of God, not as a fixer, but as the one who already knows the ending. I want to encourage you to lean into this aspect of your spirit life with God, to connect with him in this way, to learn to hear him. Because humanly speaking, if you're at all like me, it will build in you a confidence as you go through life. It makes recovery so much easier when you're confident of the direction you're supposed to go, because you've listened and heard the answers. Because then you really know, you know what? I'm not doing this alone. God's got me. He brought me this far. He's not going to let me go now. If life is crazy and chaotic and there's no peace, stop what you're doing and just sit with God wherever you find yourself most able to relax. But just sit. You don't even have to be asking him things. You don't have to be saying anything to him. Just say, God, I'm ready to listen. And just sit and listen. He'll find you there in the peace. Thank you. This topic, it just so weighs on me, because so often that corporate prayer has gotten in the way of your desire to communicate with God. I know that trying to pray correctly, it's like nobody here should be too afraid or embarrassed to pray in front of anybody, because God is not judging how you said it. You don't have to say it right and use the right words. It doesn't have to sound a certain way. And yet I see this huge wave of fear across anybody who's asked, would you mind closing in prayer? It should be a joy. Like, I get to be the one to talk to God? Yes. Yes, God, we're coming. We're coming. That was me. I would have preferred to die before praying in front of people, because I don't know how to do it right. And man, that must have broke God's heart. He's like, girl, just talk to me. I'm so profoundly grateful to do church the way that we do, that we come in here as we are, flawed and broken and messed up. And I'm glad that we don't try to do things like in black and white and all the rules, and we have dogs and babies and kids and guinea pigs and mannequins, and we even have dime bags on the table with dimes in them. Yeah. It's that's what it should be like. We don't just do God on one morning a week. Jesus didn't come so we cram God into an hour or so on a Sunday morning. He came so the barriers are gone and we can be with him 24/7. We just come here because we just really love life and we love God and we love to talk about it because we have people here that we can share life with as we are. You don't have to fix yourself up. Come as you are, that's what God wants. No more masks, just bring your real. Meditate this week.